The 2030 FIFA World Cup stadium list is different from every tournament before it. Instead of one host country, or even one shared regional tournament, the 2030 World Cup is planned across 6 countries and 3 continents. Spain, Portugal, and Morocco are the main hosts. They are expected to stage almost the entire tournament. But because 2030 marks 100 years since the first World Cup was played in Uruguay, FIFA also added 3 centenary matches in South America. That means Uruguay, Argentina, and Paraguay will each host 1 match. So for the stadiums, this is not a normal World Cup setup. The main tournament is built around Europe and Africa, while the opening celebration reaches back to South America and the origins of the competition. Most of the matches are expected to be played across Spain, Portugal, and Morocco. The working plan includes 20 stadiums in 17 cities across those 3 countries, plus 3 more venues in South America for the centenary matches. But there is one important thing to keep in mind. The 2030 stadium map is still not fully settled in every detail. The host countries are confirmed, the broad plan is clear, but some venues, especially in Spain, have already changed since the original bid documents were released. Málaga was originally part of Spain's plan, but later withdrew. A Coruña also stepped away from its World Cup bid. That has opened the door for Valencia and Vigo to come back into the conversation. So when looking at the 2030 stadiums, some names are already central to the tournament, while others still depend on the final FIFA approval and match schedule. The biggest stadium project in the entire bid may be in Morocco. Morocco has been chasing the World Cup for decades. The country previously bid for 1994, 1998, 2006, 2010, and 2026, but never won. For 2030, Morocco finally gets its chance, but not as a solo host. It will share the tournament with Spain and Portugal. Still, Morocco is not a minor part of this bid. It is preparing several stadiums, and one of them could become the most important venue of the whole tournament. That stadium is the new Grand Stade Hassan II near Casablanca. The planned capacity is around 115,000 seats, which would make it one of the largest football stadiums in the world. It is being built near Ben Slimane, outside Casablanca, and it has already become part of the debate over who should host the 2030 World Cup final. Spain wants the final, Morocco wants the final, and the Grand Stade Hassan II is the reason Morocco can make that argument seriously. A stadium of that size would give FIFA a massive showpiece venue. The design is expected to include a roof inspired by traditional Moroccan tents, and the project is tied to wider infrastructure upgrades around Casablanca and Rabat. If completed as planned, it would not just be another World Cup stadium, it would be Morocco's strongest statement that it is ready to stage the biggest match in football. Rabat is another major Moroccan piece of the tournament. The Prince Moulay Abdallah Stadium is being rebuilt and modernized for 2030. The old venue was already one of Morocco's most important stadiums, but the World Cup project is pushing it into a new role. Rabat is the capital, and that gives the stadium extra importance. For a tournament spread across 3 main host nations, Morocco needs more than one major venue. Rabat gives the country a second major anchor alongside Casablanca. Tangier is also expected to be part of the tournament through Ibn Battuta Stadium. Tangier's role makes sense geographically. The city sits close to Spain, across the Strait of Gibraltar, which gives it a natural connection to the Europe-Africa shape of this World Cup. It has already hosted major matches and events, and its stadium gives Morocco a strong northern venue. Marrakesh, Agadir, and Fez round out Morocco's expected group of stadiums. The Grand Stade de Marrakesh, Adrar Stadium in Agadir, and Fez Stadium give Morocco a wider national spread. These are not as internationally famous as the Bernabéu or Camp Nou, but they matter because Morocco is trying to show that this is a national hosting project, not simply a Casablanca and Rabat event. That is the Moroccan side of the tournament. One giant new stadium, one rebuilt capital stadium, and several major venues spread across the country. Portugal's stadium plan is much smaller, but also much easier to understand. Portugal is expected to use 3 stadiums, Estádio da Luz and Estádio José Alvalade in Lisbon, plus Estádio do Dragão in Porto. Estádio da Luz is the biggest Portuguese venue in the bid. It is Benfica's home, and it opened for Euro 2004. Since then, it has hosted major European matches, including Champions League finals. For FIFA, it is a proven stadium in a capital city, with the kind of transport, hotel, and event infrastructure needed for a World Cup. Also in Lisbon is Estádio José Alvalade, home of Sporting CP. Like Estádio da Luz, it was built for Euro 2004. Having two stadiums in Lisbon gives Portugal a simple and useful setup. The city can host multiple matches without creating major travel problems, and Lisbon is already the country's biggest international gateway. The third Portuguese stadium is Estádio do Dragão in Porto. This is FC Porto's home, and it is one of the most recognizable stadiums in Portugal. It also opened for Euro 2004, so Portugal's entire stadium plan is based on venues that already have major tournament experience. Porto gives the Portuguese section of the World Cup a second major city and another strong football market. Portugal will not have the largest number of stadiums. It probably will not host the final. But its stadiums are ready-made for this kind of tournament. They are modern, proven, and located in cities that already know how to handle major football events. Spain is where the stadium picture becomes much larger and more complicated. Spain is expected to carry the biggest share of venues among the three main hosts. It has the biggest club stadiums, the most famous football cities, and several projects that are either being renovated, rebuilt, or still being debated. Madrid is the obvious starting point. The Santiago Bernabéu is one of the strongest candidates to host the 2030 World Cup final. Real Madrid Stadium has gone through a huge renovation, turning an already famous venue into a modern, multi-purpose stadium. It has history, it has location, it has global recognition, and it sits in the Spanish capital. If FIFA decides the final should be in Spain, the Bernabéu is the most obvious option. Madrid also has the Metropolitano, home of Atletico Madrid. Opened in 2017, it is one of Spain's most modern major stadiums. It hosted the 2019 Champions League final, so it already has experience with major international events. For the World Cup, Madrid having two elite-level stadiums gives Spain a major advantage. Barcelona is the second major Spanish center. Camp Nou is being redeveloped into the new Spotify Camp Nou, with capacity expected to be above 100,000 once the project is complete. That makes it one of the largest stadiums in Europe and one of the most important venues in the 2030 conversation. Camp Nou also has World Cup history. It was used during the 1982 World Cup in Spain. A rebuilt version of the stadium would give the 2030 tournament another massive showpiece venue. Barcelona's second stadium is RCDE Stadium, home of Espanyol. It does not have the same name power as Camp Nou, but it is a modern football-specific stadium and gives the city another usable venue. Like Madrid and Lisbon, Barcelona is expected to have two stadiums involved in the wider plan. Bilbao brings in San Mamés. This is one of the best modern stadiums in Spain. It opened in 2013 as the replacement for Athletic Club's old San Mamés, and it has a strong identity because of the club and the region around it. For a World Cup, San Mamés gives Spain a venue with modern facilities and a proper football atmosphere. San Sebastián's Anoeta, also known as Reale Arena, is another Basque Country venue in the plan. The stadium has changed significantly from its older athletic-style layout. The running track was removed, the stands were brought closer to the pitch, and the venue became much better for football. That kind of redevelopment matters. A stadium can meet basic requirements on paper, but for a World Cup, the atmosphere still counts. Anoeta is much stronger now than it was before the renovation. Seville is expected to be represented by La Cartuja. La Cartuja is a strange stadium in Spanish football because it is not the regular home of one of Spain's biggest clubs. But it has hosted major finals and national team matches, and it gives southern Spain a large venue. For FIFA, capacity and event experience matter, and La Cartuja has both. Zaragoza's role depends on the new Romareda project. The old La Romareda has been part of Spanish football for decades, but the World Cup plan is tied to a rebuilt or heavily modernized stadium. This is one of those projects where 2030 becomes the deadline. The city has talked about replacing or upgrading the stadium for years, and the World Cup gives the project a much bigger push. Gran Canaria adds something different to Spain's list. Estadio de Gran Canaria would bring the Canary Islands into the tournament. That creates some travel challenges because it is away from mainland Spain, but it also gives the tournament a wider Spanish footprint. It means the World Cup would not only be concentrated around Madrid, Barcelona, and the mainland football centers. The unsettled part of Spain's stadium list comes from Málaga, A Coruña, Valencia, and Vigo. Málaga was originally included through La Rosaleda, but the city later withdrew. The issue was the cost and disruption of rebuilding the stadium to World Cup standards. The plan would also have affected Málaga CF, including the possibility of playing away from La Rosaleda during construction. In the end, the city decided the World Cup project was too expensive and too disruptive. A Coruña also stepped away from its World Cup bid. Riazor had been part of the earlier Spanish list, but the city and Deportivo La Coruña shifted toward a different modernization plan for the stadium and surrounding sports complex. Instead of chasing FIFA requirements at any cost, they chose a project focused more directly on the club and the city. That created space for Valencia and Vigo. Valencia's Nou Mestalla is one of the most famous unfinished stadium projects in Europe. Construction started years ago, then stalled for a long time. For 2030, it could finally become relevant again. If completed as planned, Nou Mestalla would give Spain another large venue, with capacity around 70,000. Vigo's Balaidos is also trying to move back into the picture. Celta Vigo's stadium has been undergoing redevelopment, and it could give Galicia a World Cup venue after A Coruña's withdrawal. But like Valencia, Vigo still depends on the final venue process. That is why Spain's stadium list needs to be handled carefully. Some venues are obvious. The Bernabéu, Camp Nou, Metropolitano, San Mamés, and La Cartuja are central to the plan. But the final Spanish lineup has already changed once, and it may still change again before the tournament arrives. Then, there are the three South American stadiums. Uruguay's match is expected at the Estadio Centenario in Montevideo. This is the most symbolic stadium in the entire 2030 plan. It hosted the first World Cup final in 1930, when Uruguay beat Argentina. Bringing the tournament back to the Centenario is the reason the South American matches exist in the first place. The stadium is expected to be renovated, but its importance is not only about capacity or modern design. It is about where the World Cup began. Argentina's centenary match is expected at Estadio Monumental in Buenos Aires. The Monumental is home of River Plate and the largest stadium in Argentina. It also hosted the 1978 World Cup final, when Argentina won its first World Cup. That gives it a direct place in World Cup history, not just South American football history. For 2030, it gives Argentina a major role in the centenary celebration without making the country a full co-host of the main tournament. Paraguay's match is expected at the new Estadio Osvaldo Dominguez Dib in Asunción. This is tied to Club Olimpia, and the project involves replacing the current stadium with a new venue expected to hold around 46,000 people. Paraguay is not hosting a full group of matches. It is hosting one centenary match, partly because Paraguay is home to CONMEBOL. That makes the stadium project unusual, because it is being prepared for one World Cup match rather than a full tournament schedule. The final is the biggest unanswered stadium question. If Spain gets it, the Santiago Bernabéu is the strongest candidate. It has the location, the renovation, the history, and the global profile. Camp Nou can also make a case because of its size and status, but Madrid has the stronger political and logistical argument. If Morocco gets it, the Grand Stade Hassan II would become the defining stadium of the tournament. A new 115,000-seat venue near Casablanca, hosting the World Cup final, would be a massive statement for Morocco and for African football. That decision has not been officially settled by FIFA. For now, the 2030 stadium list includes some of the most famous football grounds in the world, along with several stadiums that still have to be finished, rebuilt, or approved. The tournament is coming to the Bernabéu, Camp Nou, Estádio da Luz, Estádio do Dragão, San Mamés, the Centenario, and the Monumental, while places like Casablanca, Rabat, Zaragoza, Valencia, Vigo, and Asunción are still tied to major stadium work before 2030 arrives.
And that's what we have for you today. Let me know your thoughts and feedback down below, which stadium that you may be most interested to see in the 2030 World Cup. And we'll see you next time on TFC Stadiums. Ciao.